Sunita was just 13 years old when, along with her friends, she had her first cannabis cigarette. By the time she was 18, she was chasing cocaine. This is a state of the drug scene that is in Goa. In Goa, a land of tourism, it is the drugs that are chasing the users. There is a pandemic of addiction, and that is unprecedented. Hello everyone and welcome to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. Our guest today is Father Joe Pereira. He is the founder of the KPPA Foundation. Father Joe, welcome to our show and thank you for making the time to come here and speak with us. Now, the KPPA Foundation is also known as the KPPA Iyengar Yoga Foundation. How did it start? A priest starting a foundation like this is very unique. Tell us your story.
KPPA Foundation is a foundation that was originally inspired by Mother Teresa. Her nuns could not handle addicts, so she asked me to train her nuns, and then she later on gave me 3 of her most difficult alcoholics in Ashadan, and I took 7 from the roadside and we began KPPA Foundation. Later on I realized that this model of self-help has a lot of spirituality, a lot of psychology, but it doesn't have anything for the body. And we in the East, our spirituality has to be with the body. And Iyengar Yoga, I have been a sadhaka, a seeker of yoga, of health and spirituality through my Guruji Iyengar. And he showed me the way. We began in 1981. When we completed 25 years in 2006, he came to Bombay and showed us, he heard the sufferings of an alcoholic and the sufferings of a HIV patient and offered to give me special protocols to handle this ailment together with the spirituality of the 12-step program and the psychology of the 12-step program. So it is a holistic model, and it has gone now all over, more than 44 countries. It is called the KPPA Foundation Iyengar Yoga. So KPPA Foundation basically includes all kinds of human disabilities. So it is a foundation that reaches out to the most misunderstood. Nobody understands an addict, and that is the biggest problem in Goa. So we have to really create, and there is hope. And at the end of my presentation I was sharing with you, I will show you that Goa is a land of spirituality, but unfortunately it has become a land of drugs. And we can reverse this, because the thirst is the same. The thirst for God is there, but satanically, and I use the word satanically because a great psychologist, Carl Gustav Jung, said addiction is a fight between God and Satan, good and evil. So where else can you find a land of Shanta Durga and St. Francis Xavier succumbing to this evil intrusion? And I think it is happening beautifully. I will end on a note of hope, because there are forces of evil, but there are forces also of good. And those good, the forces of good are coming out from their suffering and pain. That's the beauty of the Goa culture, that we have welcomed the people who used to be heavily into addiction are today returning. They came earlier as hippies, but today they're coming and sharing in our self-help meetings that I am 20 years sober, I am 25 years away. The last time I came, I even sold my passport. This time, I am helping people how to get away from this terrible, it is a pandemic. And it is not only in Goa, it is in all the metros, all over the world, you know. I've just come from Canada and it is blowing, it's completely losing control over the youth. And that's the tragedy. We'll come to that when we attack some very special clientele. And in Goa, the clientele are the tourists, but the biggest clientele are the youth.
The locals,
The local.
the youth. Now, for those who do not know about the Kripa Foundation, like Father said, it was founded in 1981. That's about 42 years. He's better in math than I am. So 42 years. And Kripa looks after, it supports, it cares for the afflicted and the affected. Those who are dependent on chemical substances, those who are affected and afflicted by HIV and AIDS. Father spoke about Ashadan. Now, when I was in school in Bombay, I used to go to school at Clare Road, and Ashadan was in my neighborhood, in our school neighborhood, and every year for Christmas we used to go there. It was a very depressing time, to put it very lightly, because we seen really sad, depressing things. The people over there were suffering, and I think Kripa has done an incredible job. It is still doing an incredible job. Like Father said, today Kripa is in about 42 countries.
44 countries.
44 countries.
And in India, we're the largest NGO in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Because
yes.
of which we received awards like Padma Shri and
Right.
Lifetime Award. It's all because we are fully in 14 states. We have 19 centers. Our latest centers are Arunachal Pradesh and Tripura, and they are helpless. The Maharaja of Tripura is wondering how he was not aware that there is an answer to addiction.
So the addiction pandemic is not just centered in Goa, but there are other states as well. Like you right now said, Tripura, Assam.
Northeast
The
is
Northeast.
filled with addiction. It's pathetic, but somehow the other, because it is a kind of a gateway from other kind of drugs coming in. But today the gateway is Bombay and Delhi and all these big things. So let me say something here, that when we are attacking this problem, there are two dimensions for this problem: the supply reduction and the demand reduction. We work with the demand reduction, knowing fully well that the alcohol and drug doesn't come to me, I go to the alcohol and drugs. So I work on the person. Supply reduction works on the reduction of supply, and that's a big scenario. I don't want to open my mouth, I may lose my life. It's a dragnet, and it's a global dragnet. There is no political will today to handle supply reduction. Countries like Singapore and all, where they have handled supply reduction, there's no addiction in sight. Yet they offer self-help programs there for people who are prone to get into addiction. So there has to be an enlightened attitude towards supply reduction. But people are making a lot of money on this supply reduction road. But we don't look at it. We only concentrate on the person. And you work on one good recovery, and that person can influence
So many
else.
It is the same, like they say, when you educate a woman, you are educating a family. So in the same way, when an addict has recovered, he or she has the opportunity to influence many others.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Father, you have told us that the Kripa Foundation is also known as the Kripa Iyengar Yoga Foundation. So we have heard of yoga, we have heard of different types of yoga. If Father is going to question me about it, of course, I will not be able to answer all his questions. But how is Iyengar Yoga, Father, different from all the other yogas that are there?
Iyengar Yoga is a holistic yoga. But as Carl Gustav Jung said, yoga can never be practiced by anyone who follows the reductionistic way, the materialistic way. So when Iyengar Yoga got exported, all those people, the Westerners, and even today quite a few of them in Goa, they don't have any dimension of faith. Now, if you don't have dimension of faith, you're going to stop at Bahiranga Sadhana and keep only doing exercise, and I call that monkey yoga, because you're only jumping around the place and there is no aspect of the breath. There is nothing to do with pratyahara. There is nothing to do with spirituality. Dharana, dhyana and samadhi is alien to the Westerners.
Just a moment, Father. Pratyahara, what does that mean?
That means a capacity to get away from the temptation of the senses and the mind. I call it a disposition of dispossession. And the biggest dispossession we have to do is forgiveness. You know, when you really let a person, because a person who has gone into addiction has gone there because that is a failure of love. Martin Buber, the great existentialist, Jewish existentialist, said we are born for love. And love is an I-thou relationship. When that is not held, all those who are disappointed in that create a I-it relationship. It starting with the chemical of your choice, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, misuse of money, shopping, internet, pornography. The market for self-gratification has exploded all over the world, but in Goa to gigantic proportions.
Why is it so? Why Goa? Because we are known as a land of sun, of sand, of good food and lovely people. So why? What happened?
Yeah, because in Goa, the kind of tourism that used to emphasize good, clean entertainment, today has been, satanic intrusion has come in, and beautiful parties, or let's say cocktail parties. Can you imagine in a cocktail party, somebody brings the stuff and says, you're a nerd if you have never smoked up. And the girl falls victim to that. And that is the evil, that good methods of entertainment of our old time has been shattered by these peddlers and pushers and all that.
Right. There is this, everything that you are saying makes a lot of sense, but still it's so difficult to understand that people know and realize that, that it is wrong, but we are still attracted to it. We still want that high, we still want that pleasure. So is it the fault of the individual, or do you think it is the society?
Yes, let me tell you one thing. My supreme yogi is Jesus. I call him supreme yogi,
right?
Because he could say the Father and I are one. And my supreme yogi said that the children of darkness are cleverer than the children of light. So there's an attack on our children who are so creative and so brilliant, but their brilliance is used for this self-gratification, and there is no limit to the self-gratification. I have picked up girls from addas from here. I've picked them up because they used to come to Goa and they used to binge, and their parents do not know what they are doing in Goa. So Goa has become a kind of a welcoming pad, as they say, to freak out. So we have to do something. That is where demand reduction, all that we are doing to tell these people don't take this thing, has to be also supported by supply reduction. If there are whole settlements here where you can easily go and have your drug, what's happening with supply reduction? Something is going wrong, So that is where I would say that you have to hit the nail on the head. Otherwise we are just losing our youth. Our youth is, what's the effect of alcohol and drugs? If you take alcohol uncontrollably, you get into schizophrenia, bipolar. If you take cannabis uncontrollably, these people don't realize. They say, we are only having a weed, it's not a drug. Rubbish. It damages your mind, and there are heaps of these young people who are suffering from psychosis. It's a terrible disease. And parents don't know how their children who went abroad for studies ended up as psychotic. And this is the unknown part in Goa, because they're all wanting their children to study more and all that. They go to, I will use, there are some places, I don't want to use the name of these places,
Right.
where there are universities of great, repute. And they go to those universities. I knew that these people in those universities, 80% of them are on cannabis. And a girl who was brilliant after 2 years cannot perform.
That is what I said, Father, in the introduction. The girl, Surita, she started with cannabis at 13, because she was in the company of friends who offered it to her. And then after that, she became so dependent on it, right? Now, at Kripa, you all have a 12-point program. Can you explain to me, as well as to our audience, of course, what does this entail?
The 12-step program was commenced in 1935. Because medicine failed, psychiatry failed, and even men of religion failed, when two drunks sat together on the 10th of June 1935, a principle was born that when one alcoholic or addict shares his brokenness and pain with another, there is a quantum effect. The healing takes place. So unidimensionally, what cannot happen happens in a holistic way. And this I-thou relationship is extremely important. The 12-step program encapsulates, first and foremost, the need to admit that I am. It's not that I was an alcoholic only, I am today. And the irony is, when we used to use, we would say, I'm not an alcoholic. But now, all of those who stop drinking, they stop drinking, and yet they say, I am an alcoholic. So know thyself, know yourself well, and admit the truth about yourself. The second step says, don't rely on your self-will. The second step says, please turn to a higher power, where you shift the locus of control from your ego onto the self, onto the indwelling spirit. When that conversion takes place, it is a conversion. When that conversion takes place, then the person doesn't relapse. And then he has to make what is known in yogic terminology, Ishvara Pranidhana. You have to surrender yourself to God. So third step says, making my will and my life over to God. It's a beautiful program. After doing that, we have the fourth and fifth step, where you have to do a searching and fearless moral inventory. And that makes the person take responsibility for all that he has done in the past. Then the sixth and seventh step also reminds us that it's not enough to just stay dry. You can be dry drunk. You know how many of recovered people, so-called recovered people, are in this category of dry drunk. Why? Because they don't touch alcohol anymore or drugs anymore, but they are heavily into multiple partners, sex and gambling and all that kind of stuff.
So they want an outlet for...
Yes.
So I have stopped with this, but I need an outlet for everything that is building up.
Smoking, nicotine. Today, so many, and sex also, so many recovered people in the self-help program, not maintaining this, have been hurt very badly. And therefore, we talk about dealing with your character defects. Sixth and seventh step talks about character defects. Then eighth and ninth step tells you, you better make up with those with whom you broke your relationships. So they go and they make up with that. Then the 10th step is, every day I keep a track. See, there has to be a program, because this program works one day at a time. There again, my Supreme Yogi says, sufficient for the day is the evil thereof. See, most of the founding fathers were Christian. So they got their teaching, but it's also available in all the other, in the Bhagavad Gita and all that. Because if you study the Bhagavad Gita in the light of St. John's Gospel, and if you read the book, The River of Compassion, you see everything is the same, like Mother Teresa always says, Matthew 25, whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do it to me. Shri Krishna says the same thing in the 6th chapter. Yoma pashyati sarvatra sarvancha mai pashyati tasya aham na pranashami sachameva na pranashyati. The same thing, that you see me. And Kripa is a gift of Mother Teresa to see the Lord in every suffering addict and alcoholic. Nobody understands them. So we have also developed a family systems therapy. It's an international body. Today we have got about 300 families. They come and they learn for the first time how to relate to a loved one who is addicted. First and foremost, to admit that you are affected and you need all the 12 steps as they are following the 12 steps. Our language changes, our perception changes, our perspectives change, and recoveries are taking place better. Why? Because we reconnect them with an I-thou relationship. Love is the healer. But what love are you talking about? Love with the lover, that is God, and love of the other, that is I-thou relationship. And this is a sacred model. It has all the components of medicine, psychiatry, and religion, authentic religion, not, because religion also has become an addiction today.
Right.
It's a terrible thing. Religious fundamentalism today is the most...
We can see it in our country. Yes.
We can see it. I don't want to make any statements about it, but it's sad.
It is.
That people who are into this kind of self-righteous addiction, they're trying to do something for other addictions, but they are not facing their own condition of their own state. Anyway, so let's come back to addiction. It's a beautiful opportunity for all of us in Goa to see that there is a way out. And the way out is not to call a doctor, not to call a psychiatrist, not to go to a man of religion, Pota and all this, Virankani, all these places. Good, you can go and do your religion work, but don't dabble with, don't tell an alcoholic, a drug addict, you go towards, what is this? By going to a religious place, you're going to get all right. One thing science has today recognized, that faith is not enough. And St. John says that faith is not enough. Faith has to go with works. And the 12-step program includes faith and works. You have to work your program out. And I'm happy that Goa is being blessed by recovered people in recovery, coming and encouraging both Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. I wish we can start gambling in ours, because there are a lot of people who are victims of gambling.
Right. Father, you said it is one day at a time. I remember when I used to go for the AA meetings with a family member, we used to have this prayer that we used to start with and end with, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I always think and I always believe that this is a prayer that really touches your heart, and if you meditate on it and if you sit and think about it, it makes so much of sense, because there are certain things that we can change and there are certain things we cannot change. But in everything we require, of course, God's help, we require mercy, and Kripa is all about mercy. The word Kripa comes
Grace.
from the word grace,
it's
from mercy.
Word for grace, for God's grace.
And we require
there is a Yoga Sutra which says that human effort is not enough unless you dovetail that human effort into the grace of God. The verse is 47th verse of the Kriya Yoga 2nd Adhyay. It says, Prayatna Shaitilya Ananta Samapattibhyam. Dovetail your expertise and your effort into the grace of God.
So divine intervention is crucial. Let us take a small break. It's been interesting talking with Father Joe. We have so much more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment. Hello and welcome back to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. We are in conversation with Father Joe Pereira, the founder of the Kripa Iyengar Yoga Foundation. Father, we have been speaking about addiction. Before I ask you more questions related to this topic, can you tell us that Kripa also looks after people, cares for people who have HIV and AIDS? Can you tell us something about that?
There are many ailments connected with addiction. And one of those ailments was prostitution and sex addiction. And that was the greatest channel of HIV coming into the country. Okay, so we had to reach out to them because many of them were not really, it's a no fault. All addiction is a no fault disease. We don't condemn anybody because you have been an addict. You're not a mad person. You're not an insane person. You're not a bad person, but you're a sick person. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous welcome people with that awareness. So we don't condemn, we don't judge. Yes, HIV and AIDS, every time people died during those days of HIV AIDS, and they died of other ailments, and there was a very big business family that hired a journalist to write a book, and she wrote a book calling Not Allowed to Cry. It was about a very big industrialist who died of cancer, but the rumor went round that he died of HIV AIDS. So stigma and discrimination against an ailment like which can have addiction connection had to be treated as an ailment. And that's why Kripa had about 10 dropping centers in the Northeast. Today we have just 3 because now it's not so much. The Northeast has got ailments of, because of common use of injecting needles and all that, we have a lot of Hep C, hepatitis C cases, and there are lots of deaths with that. Today we have got a lot of medication, HRV, we have this, what do you call it, antiretroviral treatment, ARTs, but for Hep C, hepatitis C, there's no treatment, very expensive. So people are dying still in the Northeast. Young people are dying of that. But we reach out to them,
Right. I was, Father, because I was supposed to be interviewing Father, I was listening to a speaker called Gabor Mate and on addiction. And he says that we all consider addiction as a disease, but basically it is an attempt by that individual to compensate for a loss, to cover and to heal a wound. What do you think, Father?
Gabor Mate and I, we are co-speakers on various panels. And,
that's interesting. That's very interesting.
We are together in Canada and United States. And I have great respect for Gabor Mate because he has made us aware that addiction is connected with a trauma.
Yes.
So when I do a craniosacral scan, I discover, like in Melbourne, I did a craniosacral scan over a young man who was heading to be an alcoholic. And I saw that in the craniosacral scan that a young girl of 13 or 14 came and just threw a baby on the floor and disappeared. Later on, his adopting parents told me that was his mother. Was she a prostitute? Was she raped? What was the husband? So everything comes alive when you go back in your genetic conditioning. So we are all conditioned by human limitations, and trauma is a big issue. Now, it's not only the trauma that these people have suffered from their parents or whatever. See, parents have given them the best, and yet they tell their parents, "Ma, you gave us money, you gave us cars, you gave us high life, but where were you?
You didn't give us time.
You didn't spend time with us. You never spoke to us, and Dad was doing his own thing. You are doing your own thing, and you are expecting us to get well." This is a double standards. So one thing in addiction, we have to realize that we have to clean up our own life. And therefore we have this family systems therapy, where we say, there was an addictionologist, Vernon Johnson, who said, "It's a dubious luxury to think that you are not an addict. I am an addict. As long as I like something and I go for it, I am an addict. It may not be harmful like alcohol and drugs, but it could be anything. It could be money."
But it does affect you negatively.
Absolutely.
So an addiction is not always, you can't see the bad effects of it right away, but in some way, maybe physically, mentally, emotionally, it is affecting you, and that is an addiction.
Because it takes you away from your original ethos.
Sense.
You are made for love, and you are now placing your love in a relationship, in a chemical, or in a bad relationship of sex or anything. So find yourself and come back to your original ethos, which is love.
That's
the answer.
That is the answer. So you were speaking about your the 12
steps.
12-step program. Normally, I'm just asking. Normally, how long would it take if I were to admit myself at Kripa and I have an addiction? Would it be 6 months? Would it be 3 months? How long would it take for me to
Generally,
say that I've learned the 12 steps and yes, I can
well,
move?
it's not a question of learning, but it's a question of
Practicing.
living and practicing. So generally, our centers advise, 3 months. But this program is so powerful that I have kept away people from going into rehabs and told them to start attending meetings, because even after you go to the rehab, you come out, you have to maintain yourself.
Yes.
And the most important maintenance is to have a sponsor, that humility to have a sponsor, and that humility to have a home group. And I'm so happy that Goa has got now more and more groups of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. This is the saving factor of Goa.
Right. Now, you have included Iyengar Yoga in your program. Again, this is just a question, Father may get irritated with me, but if I were an addict, my mind is completely befuddled. I have so much going on. I'm not functioning correctly, effectively. And then you make me do Iyengar Yoga, which is rather strenuous.
Okay,
How do people react to that?
Okay, let me answer you one thing. Kripa Foundation Iyengar Yoga is a spirituality of the body. All our centers start the day with 1 hour of Iyengar Yoga, which is meant for addiction recovery. What is it? Harvard physician affirms this. He said, if you want to really heal, first learn to relax. He came to India and got this formula in the 50s. And he called that relaxation response. So when we teach Iyengar Yoga has a very special type of practice, which is not only jumping around and all, but resting. And why? Because my Supreme Yogi said, come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. Now, the same scientist comes again to India and finds out that this restedness leads you to a sense of being well, and he calls it remembered wellness. Exactly, this program does that to you. It doesn't condemn you. It says to you, you are loved. Like Mother Teresa is saying, God so loved the world that he gave us his only son. So feel loved. So that second part, being loved, leads you to the third dimension, which today science is acknowledging. And what do they call it? They call it the faith factor. And a Harvard physician in a conference of faith and healing stood up and said, today we know, because when we do this kind of meditation, Iyengar oriented meditation is measurable. Take for instance, when we finish our Bahiranga Sadhana, outer body, which is all restorative work, and when we come to the final phase, there is a hypometabolic measurement that you can have. In Chicago and in Beijing, I have brain mapping instruments where we see that this heart rate is down, breath is down, and brain waves from beta have come down to alpha, from alpha to gamma, gamma to epsilon. So this is measurability. And so science today That man standing up in our conference and said, fellow scientists, I want to tell you that our brains and our bodies are wired to God. Why? Because when that extreme, that last stage of Ishvara Pranidhana, there is a measurability that your brain waves are no more the beta waves, but you have shifted into the right brain, which is to be able to feel. It's not thinking, it's attention. It's chitta vritti nirodha. And Iyengar yoga, so 1 hour in the morning, a variety of restorative positions, then you go and stay in.
Along with pranayam and then meditation.
Yes, pranayam is inclusive of this 1 hour program. So some days you have only Bahiranga sadhana, some days you have pranayam included, some days you lead them into dharana and dhyana. Tato dvandva na abhighataha. What is that? That is samadhi. So if they get the feeling that I am alright, I can maintain my serenity and my courage, and I can tap it from the wisdom. Now Walter Cannon, a scientist, talked about the wisdom in the body, the Weisheit in the body. Iyengar yoga brings this out. So, but this is unfortunately the Westerners don't know. And let me tell you, most of the yoga practitioners here are not at all aware, because they're only jumping like monkeys and thinking that they're doing yoga. This is not yoga. The yoga for addiction, especially for addiction, takes you from the outer body into the inner body and into the world of the trans-rational. And that is unique. So 1 hour of that all my 19 centers, 20 now because Tripura, all my morning, as soon as they get up, 1 hour of Iyengar yoga, restorative. Some, if they want to do some advanced Iyengar yoga, then in the evening we have a special class for them. They do a whole lot of, kinetic yoga and all that. We have ropes where we do.
Yes, that is what I looked at. I looked it up on the internet, and I saw all the ropes, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is more like acrobats. With all, it must be strenuous.
It's called kinetic because there's movement in that.
Right.
And not just movement, there's action inside. So what we do in the Surya Namaskar, in a semi-static way, because each component of this Adhomukha Shvana and Urdhvamukha Shvana is maintained for one minute each. Here on the ropes, you do a rope swing. I did 30 rope swings this morning. I'm 82 years old, I did 30 rope swings. You don't age.
Father is giving me a major complex, but that's fine, Father. Please go ahead. Now, you said this word trans-rational. So, when you are meditating, your attention goes from the left brain to the right brain. Have I got it right? Is that what you're saying?
When you stop the chatter of the mind, chitta vritti nirodha, then what happens is that you are open to a non-measurable world. It's not measurable. You're just in that inner silence. You just are in a timeless zone, in a completely, ageless kind of feeling. That stabdhata, stillness, it brings about in Iyengar yoga is what is known as, you are fully enlightened. Samadhi is that, basically.
Yes.
Is that, and when that recovering addict gets that, he becomes sthita prajna. Sthita is, he finds himself first. Okay, you find yourself. You had lost yourself, like a prodigal son, he had gone away. Now he's found himself.
Yeah.
And prajna is all knowing. Because you have come back home, now your perception of yourself, of the other, of life, of the world, physical world, and of the God of your understanding, all are transformed. That's why Herbert Benson, the physician of the Harvard Medical School, in the supplement Lancet of British Medical Association, openly said that yoga and meditation can transform a type A personality into a type B personality. That's recovery. You know, little children come and say, what did you do to my father? He's come back from your kripa, and he talks to us. He used to never talk to us. He does something there. We know he does some puja, whatever he does. He meditates, okay? Then he sits with us and has dinner. And after dinner, he tells mummy and me, you watch the television? You're fond of the serials? I'll go and wash the bartans. I mean, he's washing, a bank manager telling us, he's never done this. What have you done to him? You have changed a personality from type A to type B.
Right.
And that is, it's a word that India doesn't like. It is true conversion. What is conversion? Conversion is metanoia, going beyond your senses. And that is Iyengar Yoga. Don't restrict Iyengar Yoga like the Westerners do, and most of our people here are pseudo-yogis in that sense, that they are not interested in the great beyond. Please, Goa is a land of spirituality. Shanta Durga, Mangeshi and St. Francis Bon Jesu are to be preserved. Don't make, don't destroy them. And practice yoga in the right way. Integrate spirituality, dharana, dhyana and samadhi. Dr. Sinzen Nihalvi said, what is samadhi? Samadhi is a flow experience. One extreme of the life is you are stressed, and the other extreme of life, other end, is boredom. All my addicts have come from stress and boredom. You know, here we bring about a samatolatva, so that an equilibrium. Iyengar Yoga on the level of Bahiranga talks about alignment and balance. Then you go into pranayam and brings about a sense of sthirata, stillness. We have a reservoir of stillness within us that comes only when you handle your breath. But three kinds of people cannot handle their breath. The one who's all the time thinking, the one who's emotionally disturbed, and the one who has got mental problems. All of us have mental problems. But you learn to listen to your breath, the pranayamic, Iyengarian pranayamic way, and your mental problems diminish. And I have seen schizophrenics who are not endogenic schizophrenics, but who are in schizophrenics because of alcohol, have been completely out of schizophrenia. I am having greater problem with psychosis, because psychosis
is very often, and I think it is on the rise, that psychosis today is caused by a lot of these drugs that are supposed to be non-addictive, right? I've heard so many stories, Father. What is your opinion about this?
You know, I have a case in Canada where a guy used this kind of marijuana, okay, and he even taught it to his son, and his son became like a dodo. He was not doing anything. I said, isn't that enough of proof that your charas ganja and all? And by the way, another thing, I told them, now your Justin Trudeau has legalized marijuana. They said, you know, who takes that stuff? We get our stuff from Nala Sopara. So, you know, adulteration, and that causes a lot of problems. But the son told the father last year, Dad, you taught me wrong. You said that the weed was not addictive. Absolutely addictive. It has ruined my life. Now we have to listen to our children who are really learning that there is a way out. And again I come to this phenomenon in Goa, against all the false prophets, especially of this kind of, you know, trying to get people into workouts and yoga and all that kind of stuff, you know, and actually taking them into addas and into use of cannabis, you know. They are doing great damage to our children. But the self-help program is bringing them out. And I have great hope for Goa. And my center, which is Kripa Foundation Iyengar Yoga in Anjuna, is attracting over 90 countries. The methodology of this yoga for the practice of Christian meditation, if you go to WCCM worldcommunityforchristianmeditation.org. You go there, you'll find that we are in 130 countries. And there is my book teaching them yoga for the practice of Christian meditation. So it is all over known that yoga has a spiritual dimension, but it has not gone to the West because they are not interested in the spiritual dimension. But Goa can lead the world, and it is leading the world.
It's so heartening to hear what Father has to say, that Goa is leading the world. Yes, we do have problems. We all have problems. But there is hope, there is a solution, and Kripa Foundation is doing its best to help us all out. Father, thank you so much. We have learned so much from you, and it has been a pleasure and a blessing. We want more Kripa foundations and more outlets, more branches in Goa. You have one in Anjuna. Is there, before we sign off, is there any hope or a plan for one opening up in Panjim?
I have one. Well, Panjim is quite close, not so far from Anjuna. And I would like to restart the yoga component in Panjim, which will come about, you see, and in other parts. But we have a center for women in Kolva, which unfortunately somebody is trying to block us, and with the support of all the, all those people who can make. If we can get that place free again, it is ours, but no access. Our main entrance has been blocked. So if that gets, there is a crying need for women and girls, and that would be another center. It was there. It's closed down because of the lockdown, and the neighbor took advantage and blocked our main entrance. But it'll come up. I'm taking the best of help. And there's another one in Carmona. So the Carmona one is the result of St. Vincent de Paul Society doling out help to poor people, coming to know that all that help was going into alcohol. So we said, call them and give them the message, and it's doing very well.
Fine. Father, we wish you and Kripa and hope that you'll grow not just in our country but all over, and you'll do, because you'll are doing great work. I would also request you, since I'm a Panjamite, I live in North Goa, that please open a center in Panjim, in and around, because Father may say Anjuna is not far away, but it is quite a bit. It takes about 40-45 minutes. So yes, we are looking forward to that. To all our listeners, there is hope for Goa. It is not the end. There is always hope. And thank you for listening. Thank you for your time, your attention. And until next time, take care of yourself. Bye from all of us.
Namaskar.